Hi, this is Jan Spencer in Eugene, Oregon, and I am enjoying the fragrance of my lemon tree in the backyard. It's in the middle of my garden, and when I pass by, there's lots of lemon blossoms. In Eugene, yes, you can have a lemon tree in Eugene if you take care of it in the wintertime. That means covering it up occasionally when it's cold. So I'd like to share, this is the second of a series of videos, and the main topic is how preparedness fits paradigm shift. So we had a presentation the first a week ago that's now on YouTube. This one, of course, is going on YouTube. So let's just start our screen share. Preparedness and paradigm shift, second presentation. And this one, the focus, preparedness, capitalism, and the consumer culture. You can find more content about suburban permaculture. I've been transforming my quarter acre suburban property for 25 years, and I have lots of documentation on my website, Transforming Suburbia. You can find that on my website, suburbanpermaculture.org, and I have links to articles I've written online, and I have many other videos on YouTube. I am writing a book called A Primer for Paradigm Shift, and there's the beginnings of the content of that book on YouTube, and you can find links on my website to those YouTube videos. Very good. So I'm going to read some of the text here on this presentation, and a lot of it I won't. There's graphics, there's images. I just want to point out that watching this on YouTube, you can pause at any time and you can take a closer look. So paradigm shift, the consumer culture, and preparedness, they go together. A paradigm is any widely shared interest or belief system. The consumer culture is a paradigm with enormous influence over our lives and pushes excess consumption of energy and resources, along with enormous damage to the natural world, personal and social well-being. There is a high price to pay for our affluence and convenience. A primary ideal of paradigm shift and sustainability is for a society to live within the boundaries of the natural world and bring out the best and positive human potential. I like to say positive human potential is our greatest renewable resource. Choosing paradigm shift and sustainability over the consumer culture offers the best chance for positive outcomes over the long term for people and planet. There's no easy exit from our economic system and the consumer culture. There's no easy exit from this condition, but the more people making the effort to create healthy alternatives, the better. Yeah, the more people engaged in paradigm shift, the better. And important to add the caveat, the consumer culture does absolutely provide many products and services useful to paradigm shift. Absolutely. That's another presentation. This series of presentations and companion site tours show and tell many aspects of what paradigm shift can look like and encourages putting these models to use. This graphic here is comparing paradigm shift with the consumer culture. Paradigm shift does not guarantee a happy human outcome, but the consumer culture is an all but guaranteed disaster for people and planet. That's why there's so much interest in preparedness, emergency, disaster preparedness that is, to a very large degree, a result of overconsumption, damage to people and planet, thanks to the consumer culture. The consumer culture, this is what we mean by the consumer culture. This takes in a lot, of course, distractions, essentially. I'm not anti-football, actually. I kind of am a little bit of a sports fan, some myself, but the distractions of the consumer culture, the junk food is a large feature. Self-indulgence, vanity are enormous parts of the consumer culture. Shopping, gratuitous shopping. I have a big interest in urban land use and transportation. That is an enormous part of the consumer culture. Cars and suburbia, more of the consumer culture, and we're going to see more of what we already see of climate change, of pollution. The United States, of course, is leading in the world for the size of the average ecological footprint, military adventurism, and a lot more. These are just several examples of the consequences of the consumer culture. Paradigm shift. This column right here, I really like a lot. I call on the wisdom of the world's great spiritual traditions, not the religion, but the wisdom, the social behavior that almost all the world's great spiritual traditions share. These ideals: care for the natural world, modesty of lifestyle, service to the community, uplift of the spirit, and being accountable to what we do. And here are other core aspects of paradigm shift: reducing ecological footprints, building civic culture, working with, recognizing our allies and assets in the community, purposeful time and money, permaculture, positive human potential. And these are some of the expressions of paradigm shift. There are uncounted people all over the country, all over the world, creating examples of paradigm shift. Co-housing, eco-villages. This is intersection repair. This middle school teaches permaculture, permaculture convergences. So these are just a few images that provide more of an idea of what paradigm shift can look like. And we'll be seeing more of these kinds of images too. That's the point of this entire series, is to point to the positive actions we can take in our own lives. The contents of this presentation: we'll have an overview, premises. We're going to focus a good deal on the myths of capitalism. What we want to show is that if a person is interested in preparedness, then the idea of creating alternatives to capitalism and the consumer culture are just common sense. Capitalism is not capable of sustainability. It is capable of creating more problems than it already has. So that's the basis of our presentation. We'll touch on these mythologies, social engineering also. And all of this, of course, we are here. Where is the next place in this enormous volume and void of the universe where there's people of life, to be making such a mess of this? Certainly not unique, but where's the next Earth? But we should be and we're capable of doing better, of taking care of this place and uplifting the human spirit, positive human potential. They go together. Taking care of people and planet go together. Absolutely. I did just a little bit of a graphic here about disaster and disruption. Disruption can be personal. Many people live in a disrupted lifestyle. Uh, Sometimes people make bad decisions. Some people are victims. I think that the consumer culture has a major contribution to unhealthy outcomes. We see those, we read about those homelessness, drugs, all kinds of issues. These are disruptions at a personal scale, but there are so many that this is a national problem as well. There are no natural disasters. Humans are very talented at putting themselves in the way of natural phenomena, hurricanes, floods, fires. And humans, of course, as we are reminded, are making these problems worse with climate change and building habitation in places where they just shouldn't be there. The consumer culture is also making new kinds of disruptions. So here are natural phenomena. We're certainly aware of these. Humans are creating new kinds of disruption, anywhere from industrial accidents to um, economic malpractice, nuclear war. These don't happen by themselves, and we have to pay attention to these too. These can be enormously disruptive. Some thoughts on preparedness. Mainstream preparedness is smart and prudent, absolutely, but it does not address the source of the problems that are being prepared for. Anyone into preparedness should be interested in paradigm shift and moving towards sustainability. The actions to take mainstream preparedness to a higher level, like reducing eco footprints and building civic culture, are the same actions and skills on behalf of paradigm shift and moving towards sustainability. I'll say that again. This is really important. The actions to take mainstream preparedness to a higher level, reducing eco footprints and building civic culture, are the same actions on behalf of paradigm shift and moving towards sustainability. That's a very important convergence. The more people engaged in paradigm shift, the better. This is a chart I made, and it's kind of a continuum. We start here at the consumer culture, and of course, many people concerned about what the outcomes are, whether they would blame the consumer culture or they blame something else. Still, many people interested in preparedness, of course, and that's a wide variety how that interest can take shape. And then beyond preparedness, there's being moving towards resilience, and many people recognize resilience, the importance of resilience, and moving beyond resilience is towards sustainability. And this realm here, of course, is the realm of paradigm shift actions, reducing eco footprints, prioritizing time and money, permaculture, block planning. These are topics we'll go into more detail in further presentations in this series. So this is not at all a put down of preparedness. I do a lot of preparedness myself, but I also take my preparedness into the realm of resilience and consciously purposefully with the ideal and taking actions moving towards sustainability. I do a lot of this. The more people who move from preparedness towards resilience in the direction of sustainability, the better. Absolutely. So just to kind of clarify, what is preparedness? This image came off the internet. There's lots of images on the internet that show what preparedness can look like. It's stashing food, of course, it's radio, it's batteries, it's first aid, it's medications, and all that's important stuff. All of that is absolutely good to have ready when you need it. The go bag, all of that is good stuff. But as mentioned, it is reactive. It doesn't address the real cause of these problems. And resilience moves more in the direction of addressing some of those issues, takes preparedness a little bit further. So what we have here is a 3,000 gallon rainwater storage tank that happens to be in my backyard. This is in my greenhouse. These are some pictures of my own place. I grow a significant amount of my own food. Am I off the grid? Is that my goal here at my suburban permaculture project? Of course not. I have no thought of being independent of my needs. That's just not realistic. I'm not interested in. But these are actions people can take. It's nice to own your own property. Not everybody does. Different issues, different life circumstances certainly have different challenges and different ways to address those challenges. Apartment complexes, many of them with property, could be doing these kinds of actions for the people who live there. What do you do if you live on the 40th floor overlooking Central Park in Manhattan? I really don't know what you're going to do, but that's something to have in mind. Uh, Building civic culture is also a critical part of paradigm shift. So, a critique of capitalism and the consumer culture. Let's just do this. We'll start with uh, a critique of capitalism. A term that's useful here is the common denominator. Capitalism and its most notable product, the consumer culture, are the common denominator of many familiar serious problems. Because this dishonest economic system is the source of so many problems when we don't buy the products and services that don't serve sustainability, we push back on many problems at the same time. And this is very important. When we don't spend our money on products and services that aren't healthy, that aren't sustainable, we can use that money instead to invest in paradigm shift. We can donate to a worthy cause. We can set up a rainwater system. We can take time to know our neighbors and build civic culture. So the common denominator, capitalism and the consumer culture, social damage, public health damage, political and economic damage, environmental damage. And people also need to be accountable for their own participation in this system. Many people blame the corporations, and many corporations certainly deserve blame. Many corporate higher ups deserve to be in jail, absolutely. But we have to be responsible and accountable in our own lives. How much do we invest? How much of our time and money goes into participating in the consumer culture? And of course, this just looks kind of like what the consumer culture is up to. Deconstructing the myths of capitalism. The myth of capitalism, in my thinking, the magic hand, informed choice, economic efficiency, gross domestic product, democracy and capitalism go together in American exceptionalism. We'll take a little bit of a closer look at all of these. This is wonderful material. If you've ever had a conversation and you're debating with somebody the pluses and minuses of our way of life, uh, some of what you hear in this presentation may be helpful, and you may add on to this as well. This is absolutely not the final word, but there's a lot of good content if you are interested in sharing these ideas when the opportunity presents itself. Absolutely. These myths are all essentially very much tied in with each other. And for me, in my own assessment, this phenomena, external cost, is really at the core of really all of these economic mythologies of capitalism. And I'll go a little bit more specific on external costs here very shortly, like right now. External costs, essential dishonest subsidy to the consumer culture. That's what external costs are. The practice of external costs deserves special attention because it is such an essential part of the mainstream economic system. An external cost occurs when a product is sold and the use of that product damages public well-being and the environment. The damage goes beyond the person who's using the product. The damage is exported over your backyard fence, perhaps, or it may be exported to people you're never going to meet in some far off country who are impacted by the oil being taken from where they live so Americans can drive their cars. That's also an external cost. External costs amount to an enormous subsidy to the economic system. The American dream requires a fundamentally dishonest economic system. And these, I just listed a few of these. How many can you add? Factory farming, cars, tobacco, gambling, violent entertainment, junk food. These are just a few very popular, very common products that have enormous external costs. The magic hand of the marketplace. This is the mythology of the magic hand. Through individual self-interest and freedom of production, along with freedom of consumption, the best interests of society are fulfilled. I wonder who came up with that idea. Neoliberal economics calls for minimal regulation of business, let the market decide. The magic hand has delivered us with climate change. The magic hand has delivered us with a financial condition where 1% of our nation's population owns 16 times as much as the bottom 170 million people, 3.5 million people own uh, 16 times as much financial resources as something half the nation's population. That's about 170 million. That statistic from the U.S. Federal Reserve. The magic hand is the manager of the assembly line of disruption and disaster. So what does this look like? The magic hand and external costs. Um, Here are just a few images, and we'll see these same images again because they apply all over the different aspects of the economic system. But of course, the magic hand uh, has a big part in pollution, climate change. This is what it can look like, oversized homes. And of course, this isn't even really a big oversized home. And of course, some people have multiple oversized homes. Damage to people in distant locations. A friend of mine from Ecuador said this is the Ecuador Amazon, where there's gold prospecting and oil being pumped out of that area. This is a petroleum pit of byproduct here, and local people not very happy about that, and they shouldn't be either. Clear cuts, the dispiriting urban landscape. This is the magic hand at work. Obesity, avoidable medical costs, junk food. This is the magic hand at work. Is this the best interest of society by way of freedom of production and freedom of consumption? I don't think so. Informed choice is another mythology. Informed choice claims the economic system provides the buyer with accurate information so they can make an informed choice of what they buy. Well, that's completely reasonable, but that's not what the reality is. External costs clearly show we do not have informed choice. All the damage those products cause, that damage in the trillions of dollars is not accounted for in the price we pay for the products and services that we use. In effect, damage to people and planet subsidizes the economy. It makes some people very rich, and all that damage also provides employment for millions of people as well. The economic system depends on external costs. We'll see a little bit more of that quite shortly. So here again, external costs and informed choice. This particular example, what would a gallon of gasoline cost if it was accountable for all the external costs? Depends on how you want to figure that. I've looked and read at articles and it ranges substantially, but uh, the a gallon of gasoline would not cost $3 or $4 if it was accountable for all these different kinds of external costs. Would it be 20, 30, 40, 50? Uh, that's a good question, but it would be vastly different from what we have. The consumer culture cannot exist if prices told an honest story about the consequences of using these products. Economic efficiency, capitalism claims to be the most efficient system to produce products and services. And of course, efficiency means the most output with the least input. Our supersized consumer way of life would collapse if it were efficient. Our wealth, convenience, and affluence depends on excess and inefficiency. And once again, we take a look, we see some of these same images. Again, automobiles, an automobile, a typical car, weighs a ton and a half, 2 tons. It's intended to move a person from one place to another. We need transportation. Absolutely. We do need to go from one location to another. But uh, is the automobile the most efficient way to take care of that task? No, of course it's not. Most of the energy for the automobile goes to moving around all that plastic and glass and metal. The load is really insignificant. But of course, our cities are designed so it's difficult to live without a car. Absolutely, it is difficult for most people to live without a car. I don't have one myself. I've made choices to live without a car, but most people don't have that kind of a choice. The system purposefully is designed to make people dependent on buying stuff. When you have a car, of course, you need to put gas in it. You need to repair it now and then. The car is a major expense for most people, and it's purposefully that way. So this is a graphic that I alluded to a couple minutes ago. Tens of millions of jobs exist to repair the damage caused by tens of millions of other jobs. We have extreme inefficiency in our economy, and the economy depends upon it. Just when you have a quiet moment and you're just kind of contemplating, you might think, what jobs exist to repair the damage caused by other jobs? Of course, the public health sector. Um, think of the car accidents that require all kinds of medical care, or the insurance industry to cover the potential loss for immense expenditures that are really unnecessary. Administration, lots of products exist to address the problems caused by overconsumption. So just uh, think of what can you list as examples that fit into this particular graphic right here. Capitalism and disequity. This is within the realm of capitalism is goes with democracy and our freedom of choice, a political system where you can vote for whoever you like to vote for, but there's not a whole lot of choice. But I mentioned before, let's hear this again, that the Federal Reserve uh, reported 1% of our nation's population owns 16 times as much as the least affluent 50%. You can pause on YouTube and take a closer look at this factoid. It is absolutely shocking. But along with that financial economic imbalance, that also is political imbalance as well. Most people don't have $10,000, much less $1 million to donate to a political candidate that is expected to make choices on behalf of those people making all those big campaign contributions. That is just not an equal condition. That's what campaign finance reform is all about. This is not a democracy. Certainly, you can vote. If you don't have a whole lot of money, then you're not going to be a successful candidate. The higher up the position, the more it costs. So, running for a, uh, a even a local office, much less state or national, is just beyond the means of some people. You have to have lots of money. So capitalism and disequity, they absolutely go together. Here's a couple more graphics right here. This is the 20% of the wealthiest Americans own something like over 80% of the nation's wealth, and the least affluent 20%, just little slivers. This is not a stable social economic condition. All through history, there's examples of when this phenomena arrives to a certain point, then society becomes unstable, and I wouldn't think that our society would be exempt from that phenomena. Wait and see. But when you consider the Black Lives Matter, the race riots back in the 60s and 70s, the counterculture, the Occupy movement, these are all small little rumblings of that phenomena, and I would expect to see more, and rumblings very well could become less easy to ignore as time goes on as well. This graphic here compares different wealthy countries and the disequity in those countries. And of course, the United States is the most of any of these. And that's not to say that these are desirable either, but the greater the imbalance, the less secure that condition is. Gross national product, we've grown up with the idea of GNP, gross domestic product. They're a little bit different, but we'll just refer to these as being essentially very similar. One includes foreign income, domestic product, and doesn't. They're not exactly the same, but close enough. But both of these indicators tell us that the more growth and the bigger these numbers are, the better off we are as a society. And it's absolutely true that that affluence can trickle down. It certainly does. But this phenomena to say that gross national product is the final word to assess the success of a society just with the amount of financial interaction, the amount of buying and selling. This is what defines the well-being of a society. This is a part of social engineering. All of these mythologies of capitalism are a part of social engineering, and we'll take a look at social engineering in just a moment. But we're taught to accept these kinds of thoughts, these kinds of explanations, to not question where these explanations come from, who is making these explanations, and what are their motives as well. We're taught to ignore that. We're given lots of toys to play with to distract our attention. American exceptionalism. The term American exceptionalism is used to describe the belief that the United States occupies a special position in history and on the global stage by virtue of certain characteristics held to be unique to the United States. And of course, the United States is the richest, most powerful country in the world, absolutely. There are other countries that certainly don't want to have that condition stay the same. There's many adversaries out there, and that's their motives are probably not all that attractive either. But Americans are exceptional, absolutely. When the first Europeans came to North America, they hit the lottery. This continent was so full of natural resources, of water and soil, of forest, minerals, oil, on and on and on. And of course, shamelessly taken from the people who were here first. American exceptionalism. Americans are exceptional in their capacity to turn nature into money. Again, this is uh, another make-believe kind of mythology right here, and we're taught in our history and that we are special people, and yes, we are. Our being special people has a very high price to pay. So another mythology here. Social engineering, I just mentioned this a moment ago. Uh, Excess consumption and vanity are glamorized and celebrated. That is the essence of the consumer culture. The idea of consuming a great deal of something just because it's there and just because you can afford to use more than what you need, that's not the integrity, that is not an ethical basis of a society. And of course, that is a feature of capitalism that we all live with. We've been brought up, bigger is better. Social engineering um, goes back, some would say, over 100 years. Basically, the idea articulated at an early point by a person named Edward Bernays, moved from Austria to the United States with his family about the turn of the 1900s. His uncle was Sigmund Freud. Edward Bernays is credited with using modern psychology to persuade people to do certain things. And what this translates into in terms of the consumer culture is that we've been taught, we have been socially engineered to value and strive for overconsumption, the big houses, the big cars, the excess. That is what social engineering has delivered to us. And what it also has delivered is, well, we're distracted with all this overconsumption. Then there are, as Edward Bernays would describe, those who have the skill and the talent, the capacity to basically make the decisions and run the country and run the economy. They're over here doing that work, which of course is complex. Uh, well, the vast majority of people are there at the football game or they're at the shopping mall or countless other types of distractions. And those who are taking care of business, the economy, and the politics, we live in the results of what their agenda is at the same time, and it's not a good agenda. That's why so many people are interested in preparedness, uh, because it's not a stable situation. It's becoming a less stable condition. That's why we're talking about paradigm shift. And I'll mention also in the book I'm writing, I go into a good deal more about uh, the ideas of Edward Bernays and social engineering. It's a fascinating story. You can look that up online too. Social economic engineering. There's lots of content. People have written books on this topic. This is not any secret. Uh, so I would certainly encourage anyone listening here to say, okay, well, that's interesting. You can do some of your own research and you can build on what I have here. You can write your own book and do your own recording for YouTube as well. And here is kind of a mythology. The American way of life is non-negotiable. A number of well-known politicians have been credited with saying this. George Bush, uh, uh, the this goes, we are told the American supersized, over-consuming way of life that is degrading the planet undermines civic culture, degrades positive human potential, is the only economic and social choice we have as a society. I don't go along with that myself, and a lot of people don't. It's up to us to create alternatives to this system. That's ambitious to say the least, but society uh, is deserves better than this kind of thinking. Our society, this is an authoritarian and neo-feudalistic way of thinking. And it buys compliance with cheap stuff. That's the social engineering right there. So this is part of the thinking of the mainstream economic and political system. So that's mostly what I have. I'd like to just go through, this is quite a list right here, but when I was going through the presentation, what are the highlights? There's lots of highlights. These are some I came up with. The common sense destination of disaster preparedness is paradigm shift and moving towards sustainability. The magic hand is the foreman to the assembly line of disaster. The affluence Americans expect and depend on is predicated on environmental, political, economic, and social external costs. Millions of jobs exist to repair the damage caused by the products and services of millions of other jobs. Social engineering has disempowered civic culture and the capacity to imagine and create alternatives to America's consumer culture. Capitalism as we know it and its consumer culture are not capable of sustainability. A non-negotiable consumer culture equals economic neo-feudalism. Disinvesting in the consumer culture is pushing back on many downward social, economic, political, and environmental trends at the same time because they basically come from the same place. Remember those fractions, that graphic with all the fractions. When we make smart use of our time and money, we address a lot of issues at the same time. Permaculture-based actions to boost preparedness, resilience, civic culture, sustainability, and paradigm shift are all the same. Again, that's the merging of preparedness and paradigm shift. A growing number of people are creating alternatives to capitalism and the consumer culture. They are pioneers of paradigm shift. The more, the better. Another of the presentations in this series will be specifically taking a look at different wonderful, inspiring examples of what people are doing all over the country to create healthy alternatives to the consumer culture. Time and money not spent on the consumer culture can be invested instead in paradigm shift. The more, the better. We'll take a closer look in another presentation. The term I like is prioritizing our own time and money. That is an action we can take in our own lives. So I've made allusion a couple of times to site tours. These presentations are companion to site tours. Of course, these site tours are here in Eugene, and by the time you see this presentation on YouTube, some of these are going to be over. But this is still important to explain. So not only do we have the presentations about creating paradigm shift, but we're going to go to locations here in Eugene that show what paradigm shift can look like. And chances are, where you live, you have some examples too. You might even have some examples in your own lifestyle and on your own property and in your own neighborhood. So, my hope is, my suggestion, if you live in a place that has a, permaculture meetup group or some type of urban homesteading, organic gardening, alternative lifestyles, connect with those groups if you're not already and get together and organize a site tour. Site tours are just such a fun educational way to really see what these positive ideas can look like. If you do that, please contact me and let me know how it goes. It's just so much fun. So this is our site tour coming up this Saturday here in Eugene. This Saturday, May 31st, we're going to Duma community. About 10 people live in this big house. And this is a learn about the history of Duma. They have rainwater catchment, big garden, permaculture, edible landscape. They do a lot of cooperation, learning communication, learning skills that apply to paradigm shift. I've been on many tours here at Duma. It's just a wonderful example of people prioritizing their time and money to do something positive. People can duplicate or adapt to their own situation these kinds of ideas in the heart of suburbia. We could turn suburbia into untold numbers of eco villages taking down the fences. In another presentation, we'll take a look at some places like N Street Co-op in Davis, California. We'll take a look at LA Eco Village. There's wonderful examples all over the country of people creating healthy alternatives. People, we need to know about these to broaden our own vision. People are doing the good work right now. So these are the upcoming tours and the Zoom presentations. You can find more detail, or if you're on YouTube, you can pause and take a look at this. These are just explanations of what we're going to be seeing. Um, for updates and related information, of course, you can go to suburbanpermaculture.org. That's my website. So this is just the continuation of the presentations and the site tours. It's so much fun to organize this. Humans are capable of so much better than what we're used to, and it's so much fun to connect with people and learn the good works that they're doing. So that's what I have. I am Jan Spencer here in Eugene, Oregon. Appreciate your interest. Feel free to call your friends' attention, your networks, to these and other presentations and opportunities to learn and take action for behalf of people and planet. So be well, be strong, be safe, but don't be shy. Thanks. Bye.